The Galactic Council of supremely important beings, who take themselves very seriously, had spent exactly 1,000 years, 47 days, 13 hours and 6 minutes, planning what they confidently believed would be the most magnificently devastating invasion in the history of the universe. They had calculated the precise atmospheric density of their target planet during thunderstorms on alternate Tuesdays. They had mapped the migratory patterns of every flying creature larger than a paperclip. They had even compiled an exhaustive database documenting the exact number of times the planet's inhabitants blinked while facing northeast during the third week of months containing the letter R. What they had not planned for, in all their infinite wisdom and cosmic bureaucracy, was the possibility that their carefully chosen target might defend itself with the single most devastating weapon known to any advanced civilization: complete and utter boredom. The realization that something might be slightly wrong with their master plan began to dawn on the Council when Junior Assistant Deputy Undersecretary Blippington discovered, quite by accident, that their invasion target wasn't actually where they thought it was. This discovery occurred during what the Council euphemistically referred to as administrative lunch hour, which was really just an excuse for everyone to eat mysterious purple substances while avoiding any actual work. "Most exalted Supreme Commander Hufflepuff," Blippington squeaked, his voice reaching frequencies that caused nearby crystals to resonate sympathetically and 3 filing cabinets to spontaneously reorganize themselves. We appear to have what you might diplomatically call a rather catastrophic navigation error." Supreme Commander Hufflepuff, whose full title required 17 minutes to recite properly and included references to his dominion over 12 different types of cosmic lint, slowly rotated his enormous primary sensing organ toward his subordinate. The movement caused several smaller officers to dive for cover, as Hufflepuff's attention was known to be physically overwhelming for creatures with insufficient bureaucratic training. What manner of navigation error could possibly be significant enough to interrupt my contemplation of strategic paperwork organization? Hufflepuff inquired, his voice producing harmonics that made nearby furniture question its purpose in life. "Well, your magnificently overwhelming supreme excellence," Blippington stammered, clutching a navigation chart so tightly that his appendages were leaving permanent impressions in the metal. "You recall how we've been meticulously planning to invade that strategically important planet in Sector 7 Alpha Gamma Delta Epsilon Zeta Eta Theta Iota Kappa? The one we've codenamed Operation Cosmic Domination of Strategic Importance. Obviously, I recall Operation Cosmic Domination of Strategic Importance," Hufflepuff thundered, causing his ceremonial eye stalks to vibrate with indignation and producing sound waves that briefly interfered with 3 nearby star systems' communication networks. "We've spent an entire millennium perfecting our approach. We've designed specialized equipment for conquering that planet's unique atmospheric conditions. We've trained our warriors in the ancient art of planetary subjugation. We've even written 17,000 battle hymns specifically for that particular conquest." "Yes, sir, about those atmospheric conditions." Blippington's voice became so microscopic that sensitive listening equipment throughout the ship automatically adjusted to maximum amplification. "The planet we've been planning to invade, well, according to these recently discovered navigational updates that someone apparently filed under completely irrelevant information, ignore permanently, that planet doesn't actually exist." The silence that followed was so absolutely complete that in a distant galaxy, a supernova paused mid-explosion to listen. Space itself seemed to hold its breath. Even the cosmic background radiation appeared to become slightly more polite. "What do you mean the planet doesn't exist?" Hufflepuff bellowed, his voice achieving such volume that several nearby asteroids spontaneously changed course to avoid the sound waves. "Well, sir," Blippington continued miserably, "it seems that the planet we've been calling Strategic Target Alpha was actually destroyed by a naturally occurring cosmic event approximately 400 years ago. The coordinates we've been using have been pointing to empty space for the last 4 centuries. However, there is a different planet in roughly the same area, which appears to be inhabited by creatures called humans, who spend most of their time engaging in activities called working jobs they hate and arguing about the correct temperature for beverages. Chief Strategic Planning Officer Wobblebottom, whose primary qualification for military service was her ability to make even the most obvious problems seem incredibly complicated, suddenly perked up with genuine alarm. "Are you telling me that our entire invasion force has been designed to conquer empty space, actual vacuum, the complete absence of anything?" "I'm afraid so, sir," Blippington replied with the tone of someone delivering news that would fundamentally alter the course of galactic history. "Our shock troops are all equipped with specialized vacuum-fighting gear. Our battle cruisers are designed to hover motionlessly in space while attacking absolutely nothing. And our ultimate weapon is... it's essentially a very large device for making empty space slightly more empty." What followed could only be described as the most spectacular military panic attack in recorded galactic history. Officers who had spent decades memorizing the precise tactical applications of fighting nothingness suddenly found themselves frantically researching concepts like planetary surfaces, atmospheric breathing, and why humans voluntarily consume heated water mixed with plant matter. Dr. Gigglesworth, the fleet's chief xenobiologist, was experiencing what mental health professionals would classify as a complete intellectual breakdown of cosmic proportions. "They're completely incomprehensible," he shrieked, waving multiple appendages at his research console, while accidentally activating 17 different analysis programs simultaneously. "Look at this data. They've developed technology capable of instant global communication, and they use it primarily to share moving pictures of small, furry animals engaged in humorous activities. They've mastered the principles of powered flight, and they use it to transport themselves to locations where they voluntarily lie motionless on heated granular minerals for extended periods. They've created devices capable of storing virtually unlimited information, and they use these devices to capture visual records of their nutritional intake before consumption." Commander Sillybottom, whose military experience consisted primarily of looking serious while shuffling important-looking documents from one pile to another, stared at the incoming data with expressions of growing existential horror. "This is significantly worse than our most pessimistic projections. According to these intelligence reports, they've organized their entire civilization around something called democracy, which apparently involves engaging in continuous verbal disputes about everything and then selecting their leaders based on who can make the most convincing promises about things they probably can't actually accomplish. The situation deteriorates further, Doctor," Gigglesworth continued, his voice reaching pitches that caused nearby equipment to develop spontaneous anxiety disorders and begin requesting emotional support. "They've artificially divided their planet into arbitrary geographical sections called countries, and they invest enormous amounts of time and resources disagreeing about imaginary lines drawn on representational maps. They've invented competitive activities called sports, which involve groups of individuals cooperating to relocate various objects from one location to another according to increasingly baroque sets of regulations. And they've created something called social media, which appears to be a method of distributing their opinions about everything to everyone, regardless of whether anyone has expressed interest in receiving those opinions. Meanwhile, on the completely unsuspecting planet Earth, Mortimer Fizzlebottom was sitting in his magnificently boring office at the Department of Administrative Redundancy and Redundant Administration, contemplating what was undoubtedly the single most important object in his entire professional existence: an enormous, brilliant, red, ominously glowing button that occupied the center of his desk like a crimson monument to mysterious governmental authority. Mortimer had been faithfully employed by the department for 27 years, 8 months, 12 days, and approximately 4 hours. And throughout that entire period, his job description had remained remarkably consistent in its beautiful simplicity. Monitor the button continuously. Under absolutely no circumstances should the button be pressed, touched, breathed on, or looked at too intensely. File comprehensive reports every hour confirming that the button remains unpressed. Button activation is strictly prohibited and may result in consequences ranging from mild administrative disapproval to potential universal administrative reorganization. The button itself represented the absolute pinnacle of government engineering excellence, perfectly spherical, irresistibly red, and positioned at precisely the optimal height to be perpetually, magnificently tempting. According to the official documentation, it was connected to something called the Universal Administrative Efficiency and Coordination System, which the manual described as a highly classified governmental device designed to maintain optimal levels of bureaucratic effectiveness through the strategic implementation of coordinated administrative procedures across multiple jurisdictional boundaries. Obedience, what the manual carefully avoided mentioning, because government manuals are constitutionally required to be as unhelpful as possible while appearing to provide information, was that the Universal Administrative Efficiency and Coordination System had been installed in 1962 by a contractor who had submitted the winning bid without actually reading the project specifications. The contractor had assumed he was installing a simple filing cabinet and had instead accidentally created what was essentially an administrative amplification device capable of broadcasting the pure essence of proper bureaucratic procedure across virtually unlimited distances. The system had been operating continuously for over 60 years, quietly ensuring that paperwork throughout the building was completed in triplicate, that meetings were scheduled to discuss the scheduling of additional meetings, that all important decisions were postponed indefinitely pending the formation of committees to study the feasibility of potentially making decisions at some point in the future, and that every administrative action required at least 17 different forms of authorization from a minimum of 9 separate departments. What absolutely nobody at the department understood, including Mortimer, was that the system's bureaucratic influence had been gradually expanding outward from Earth for over 6 decades, creating an invisible field of organized administrative efficiency that extended throughout the solar system and was slowly spreading toward neighboring star systems. Any sufficiently advanced technology that entered this field would automatically begin operating according to proper administrative procedures, regardless of its original programming or intended function. The Galactic Council's invasion fleet, with all its carefully planned military precision and cosmic efficiency, was about to encounter the most devastating force in the known universe. A government bureaucracy operating at maximum administrative capacity. "Attention, glorious warriors of cosmic domination," Supreme Commander Hufflepuff announced as their massive fleet entered Earth's solar system with all the subtlety of a cosmic marching band equipped with amplifiers powered by small suns. After a millennium of meticulous preparation, our moment of ultimate triumph has finally arrived. Deploy the intimidation formation, number 47,893. 7,000 Galactic Council warships arranged themselves in what they considered to be an absolutely terrifying pattern above Earth's atmosphere. From the planet's surface, the formation looked remarkably like someone had accidentally spilled an enormous bag of glittery party decorations across the night sky, which several humans found quite beautiful and prompted numerous wishes on what they assumed were particularly festive shooting stars. "Sir," reported communications specialist Tiddlywinks, her voice carrying distinct notes of confusion and growing bureaucratic dread, "we're receiving what appears to be some sort of official communication from the planet's surface." "Magnificent!" Hufflepuff boomed, his eye stalks practically vibrating with anticipation and producing harmonic frequencies that briefly interfered with the ship's navigation systems. "They're surrendering immediately. I knew our intimidation formation was particularly intimidating today. Display their surrender on the main viewer." What appeared on the screen was Mortimer Fizzlebottom's face, looking mildly apologetic and holding an impressively thick clipboard that appeared to contain approximately 4,000 pages of various official documents. "Good afternoon," he said with the polite efficiency of someone who had been processing government paperwork since before some civilizations had discovered fire, while carefully adjusting his regulation government-issued spectacles. "I'm terribly sorry to interrupt your undoubtedly important activities, but I'm afraid I'm going to need you to complete these standard forms before we can proceed with any sort of invasion, conquest, or planetary subjugation activities. It's simply standard operating procedure, you understand. Form 247B for declaration of hostile intent and military objectives, Form 156C for alien visitor registration and cultural background assessment, Form 943X for environmental impact evaluation of large-scale military operations, and Form 782Z for preliminary invasion permit application. Oh, and naturally, you'll need all of these forms properly notarized by an authorized governmental notary public, of course." The silence that followed was so profoundly complete that somewhere in the Andromeda Galaxy, a black hole temporarily stopped consuming matter just to see what would happen next. The concept of silence itself seemed to become more silent. Even the vacuum of space appeared to become somehow more vacuum-like. "Forms," whispered Commander Sillybottom, her voice barely audible even to herself. "Notarized," squeaked Chief Strategic Planning Officer Wobblebottom, producing sounds that registered on instruments designed to detect cosmic background radiation. "What do you mean we need to complete forms?" Hufflepuff shrieked, his 17 eye stalks writhing in patterns that suggested advanced bureaucratic stress syndrome and producing visual displays that briefly interfered with 3 nearby planets' atmospheric patterns. Mortimer consulted his impressively comprehensive clipboard with the patient, methodical efficiency of someone who had been processing official government paperwork since before most star systems had formed their first planets. "Well, sir, according to Section 1, 847, 3A of the Comprehensive Guidelines for Extraterrestrial Contact and Related Administrative Procedures, any attempt to invade, conquer, subjugate, dominate, or otherwise interfere with Earth requires proper documentation filed in triplicate with the appropriate governmental departments and reviewed by at least 7 separate administrative committees. I'm afraid there's simply no way around these requirements. Regulations are regulations, and procedures must be followed according to established protocols. The Galactic Council fleet, which had been specifically designed to handle everything from large-scale planetary bombardment to hand-to-hand combat with hostile geological formations, suddenly found itself confronted with something far more terrifying than any conventional weapon: the full bureaucratic might of Earth's administrative procedures operating at peak efficiency. But we've been planning this invasion for an entire 1,000 years, Hufflepuff protested, his voice taking on the distinctive whine of someone who has just discovered that their perfectly organized plans have collided headfirst with the immovable force of administrative reality. "Oh, I'm absolutely certain you have," Mortimer replied with genuine sympathy, apparently completely oblivious to the existential crisis he was causing throughout the invasion fleet. "But I'm afraid that doesn't exempt you from completing the proper paperwork according to established procedures. Planning an invasion and actually implementing an invasion are 2 entirely separate processes from an administrative standpoint, you see. You'll need completely different forms for each phase of your intended operation. Now let's see what we have here. You'll definitely need Form 123D for Pre-Invasion Environmental and Cultural Survey, Form 334F for Comprehensive Impact Assessment and Mitigation Planning, Form 567H for Economic Disruption Evaluation and Compensation Procedures, Form 789J for Military Action Permit and Authorization Request, and, oh dear me, Form 1098-Z for Declaration of Intent to Engage in Large-Scale Interplanetary Military Activities, which requires preliminary approval from at least 14 different governmental departments and 7 separate review committees. Dr. Gigglesworth, who had been monitoring this exchange with rapidly escalating psychological distress, suddenly began producing sounds that could charitably be described as administrative whimpering. "They've weaponized paperwork," he gasped, his voice achieving frequencies that caused nearby equipment to spontaneously develop filing systems. "How is this even theoretically possible? We've studied every known form of human military technology. We've analyzed their nuclear capabilities, their biological weapons, their chemical compounds, their electronic warfare systems. Nobody in our entire intelligence apparatus mentioned anything about administrative procedures." "Oh, and I should probably mention," Mortimer continued with cheerful bureaucratic efficiency, apparently completely unaware of the cosmic-scale administrative breakdown he was causing throughout the invasion fleet, that Form 1098-Z has been temporarily suspended pending comprehensive review by the Committee for the Evaluation of Committees responsible for evaluating other committees that evaluate administrative procedures. The earliest possible approval date for new applications would be, let me consult my official scheduling calendar, sometime in the year 2047. Assuming, naturally, that all your supporting documentation is properly completed, correctly formatted, and submitted by the appropriate deadlines according to established filing procedures. What happened next could only be described as the universe's most comprehensive administrative nervous breakdown. Galactic Council computers, which had been programmed with a millennium's worth of military protocols and strategic procedures, suddenly found themselves attempting to process concepts like filing deadlines, bureaucratic review processes, proper documentation formatting, and the correct procedure for requesting an extension on Form 247B when the original application has been lost in interdepartmental mail routing. And navigation systems began displaying error messages like, "Destination requires additional documentation. Please complete Form 445J before proceeding to specified coordinates," and "Orbital positioning suspended pending approval of temporary space occupancy permit." Our weapon systems started categorically refusing to function, demanding that someone complete a weapons discharge authorization form, an environmental impact statement for energy weapons usage, and a property damage liability assessment before they would even consider powering up their targeting systems. "Sir," reported Chief Engineer Bumpkinsworth, his voice trembling with bureaucratic terror and producing harmonics that made nearby machinery question its operational procedures, "our entire fleet is, well, it's demanding comprehensive paperwork for everything. The computers won't accept any commands unless they're properly documented in triplicate and signed by appropriate authorities. The weapons systems won't activate without completed authorization forms and environmental impact assessments. The navigation systems are insisting that we need official permits to occupy this orbital space, and the life support systems are demanding safety inspection certificates before they'll continue providing breathable atmosphere." "What kind of permits do we need for orbital space occupancy?" Hufflepuff demanded, his voice achieving volumes that briefly disrupted communications throughout the solar system. "A temporary extraterrestrial parking permit, sir, plus a large vehicle registration certificate, plus proof of insurance coverage for potential orbital debris damage, plus a non-resident alien spacecraft operation license," Bumpkinsworth replied miserably. Apparently, we're in violation of Earth's comprehensive orbital traffic regulations, Section 247.8c through Section 891.7f. Down on Earth, Mortimer was methodically organizing the extensive collection of forms he would need to send to the Galactic Council fleet. He had been working in government bureaucracy for nearly 3 decades, and he had never encountered a situation that couldn't be properly resolved through the appropriate application of correct paperwork and established administrative procedures. Now then, he muttered to himself while consulting his comprehensive procedural guidelines, they'll need the complete standard alien contact package, plus the military action supplement, plus the environmental impact assessment addendum, plus the cultural sensitivity training materials, plus the economic impact evaluation forms. Oh, and I should definitely include the comprehensive guide to Earth administrative procedures. Can't have an invasion proceeding without proper understanding of our administrative framework. UDRI, the Universal Administrative Efficiency and Coordination System, meanwhile, had detected the presence of 7,000 unauthorized spacecraft in Earth's orbital space and had automatically initiated Emergency Bureaucratic Protocol 17, which required all extraterrestrial visitors to complete a minimum of 73 different forms, obtain approvals from at least 19 separate governmental departments, and undergo comprehensive administrative processing before being granted permission to proceed with any planned activities whatsoever. The system's bureaucratic influence was spreading throughout the Galactic Council fleet like a cosmic virus of organized efficiency. Ships that had been designed for swift, decisive military action found themselves requiring proper documentation for every minor course correction, every communication transmission, and every operational decision. Soldiers who had trained for centuries in the art of combat were suddenly overwhelmed by the need to complete incident reports for every weapon they touched, every step they took, every breath they exhaled while operating within Earth's administrative jurisdiction. This is completely unprecedented in the history of galactic military operations, wailed Senior Battle Coordination Officer Flibberty Gibbet, staring at her control console, which was now displaying a message that read, "Attention! All military operations temporarily suspended, pending completion of Form 1567Q, request permission to conduct military operations in Earth's administrative jurisdiction." "Sir," reported Tactical Operations Officer Snufflebottom, "I've been attempting to target their major population centers for preliminary bombardment assessment, but the targeting computer keeps asking me to specify the precise purpose of the bombardment, the expected duration of military activities, the anticipated scope of property damage, and whether I've considered alternative approaches to conflict resolution through diplomatic channels. And sir," added Weapons Coordination Specialist Gigglebottom, "the missile systems are demanding that I complete a comprehensive property damage assessment form before they'll even consider launching, and they want detailed information about who's going to be financially responsible for cleanup operations, and whether we have appropriate insurance coverage for interplanetary military activities. Day. Furthermore, sir," contributed Navigation Officer Wobblethwaite, "the flight control systems are insisting that we need to file a flight plan with Earth's Air Traffic Control Authority, even though we're operating in space, because apparently our activities might potentially affect atmospheric conditions in ways that could impact authorized aerial vehicle operations." Commander Sillybottom, who had been staring at her communication console with expressions of mounting bureaucratic horror, suddenly spoke up with a voice that suggested her sanity was rapidly departing for a nice, quiet vacation in another dimension. "Sir, we're receiving additional official communications from the planet's surface. They're sending us even more forms." More forms. Hufflepuff's eye stalks were now rotating independently in different directions at various speeds, a clear indication of advanced bureaucratic stress syndrome and potential administrative breakdown. "Yes, sir." Form 189C, for official notification of intent to file. Form 247B, Form 2F, for application to receive application forms for military activities. Form 789H, for registration as a foreign entity seeking to engage in large-scale military activities on or around Earth. Form 1234J, for preliminary assessment of administrative processing requirements. And, oh dear, Form 2567L, for request to begin the process of requesting permission to request additional forms. And sir, communications specialist Tiddlywinks added, with a voice that suggested she was rapidly approaching her maximum bureaucratic processing capacity, they've also transmitted a complete copy of Earth's Administrative Procedures Manual for extraterrestrial military activities. It's 127,000 pages long, sir, single-spaced, with footnotes and appendices and supplementary addenda. The manual materialized on their main viewing screen, and the collective groan of despair that arose from the Galactic Council fleet was so profound and cosmically significant that it temporarily disrupted gravitational fields in several nearby star systems and caused 3 different planets to briefly question their orbital mechanics. Dr. Gigglesworth, who had been attempting to read the manual's comprehensive table of contents, suddenly began laughing in a way that strongly suggested his intellectual faculties had packed their bags and departed for an extended vacation in a more sensible universe. "Do you comprehend what we're looking at here?" he shrieked, pointing at the screen with multiple appendages while accidentally activating his emergency research protocols. Chapter 1, 847, Comprehensive Procedures for Requesting Permission to Request Additional Procedures. Chapter 2, 203, The Proper Administrative Filing of Forms, Requesting Forms for Filing Other Forms. Chapter 3, 891, Administrative Review of Administrative Reviews, conducted by Administrative Review Committees, that review other Administrative Review Committees. Chapter 5, 6 and 72, Procedures for establishing procedures to establish other procedures. Mortimer, meanwhile, had completed organizing his extensive paperwork collection and was now reaching toward the brilliant red button on his desk. According to the official Emergency Procedures Manual, the button was to be activated in the event that Earth's bureaucratic systems became overwhelmed by external demands for immediate administrative processing that exceeded normal operational capacity. "Well now," he said to himself while consulting his comprehensive emergency response guidelines, "this certainly qualifies as a significant administrative emergency. 7,000 alien spacecraft simultaneously requesting immediate processing of military action permits and invasion applications. That's definitely going to strain our normal filing and processing capacity beyond standard operational parameters." And with that moment of perfect bureaucratic clarity, Mortimer pressed the button. The Universal Administrative Efficiency and Coordination System immediately shifted into what the official manual euphemistically described as Enhanced Maximum Efficiency Mode, which in practical terms meant that it began broadcasting the pure essence of bureaucratic procedure across the entire solar system with the intensity and scope of a cosmic administrative supernova. The effect on the Galactic Council fleet was immediate, comprehensive, and utterly devastating. Every single piece of equipment aboard every ship suddenly became absolutely convinced that it required proper administrative authorization before it could perform any function whatsoever, no matter how basic or essential. Life support systems demanded signed approval forms and safety inspection certificates before continuing to provide breathable atmosphere to crew members. Gravity generators refused to function without completed environmental impact assessments and energy usage permits. Lighting systems required electrical operation licenses and illumination permits. Even the automatic doors started demanding identification badges, security clearances, and proper authorization codes before they would open. "Sir!" gasped Chief Engineer Bompkinsworth, his voice achieving frequencies that caused nearby equipment to spontaneously develop anxiety disorders and begin requesting counseling services. The entire fleet is experiencing complete administrative shutdown. Everything needs comprehensive paperwork. The toilets are demanding sanitation permits and waste disposal licenses. The coffee machines want food service licenses and beverage distribution permits. The ventilation systems are insisting on air quality certificates and atmospheric circulation authorizations. Even the paperwork is demanding paperwork to authorize the processing of other paperwork. What do you mean the paperwork is demanding paperwork to authorize the processing of other paperwork? Hufflepuff shrieked, his voice achieving such cosmic volume that several nearby asteroids spontaneously changed course to avoid the sound waves. "Well, sir," Bompkinsworth explained with the patient despair of someone explaining the incomprehensible, Form 247B is demanding that we complete Form 631A before we can submit Form 247B for processing. But Form 631A requires completion and approval of Form 247B before it can be properly filed, and both forms require preliminary approval from Form 892C, which can only be processed after Forms 247B and 631A have been completed and submitted according to proper procedures. Adurdu, the Galactic Council fleet found itself trapped in what administrative professionals throughout the galaxy would later classify as catastrophic bureaucratic recursion, a phenomenon where the paperwork required to complete paperwork requires additional paperwork to authorize the paperwork for the paperwork, which in turn requires paperwork to verify the authorization of the paperwork for the paperwork required to complete the original paperwork. Ships that had been capable of traveling faster than light were now moving at what could generously be described as the speed of government, which is considerably slower than the speed of continental drift and approximately equivalent to the speed of geological evolution. Warriors, who had trained for an entire millennium to conquer planets and subjugate civilizations, were now spending their time filling out forms in septuplicate, standing in virtual administrative queues, waiting for approval from departments that required approval from other departments, and trying to understand the subtle but crucial differences between Form 345C, Form 345D, Form 345E, and Form 345F. "This transcends all known definitions of madness," wailed Commander Sillybottom, her voice carrying harmonics that suggested complete bureaucratic breakdown. How does their entire civilization manage to function with this incomprehensible volume of administrative requirements? The answer, as it turned out, was that Earth's civilization functioned exactly the way it was designed to function, slowly, methodically, comprehensively, and with an absolute unwavering commitment to proper administrative procedures above all other considerations. Mortimer, having successfully activated enhanced maximum efficiency mode, was now calmly processing the invasion fleet's paperwork with the relentless, methodical precision of a bureaucratic machine that had achieved perfect administrative enlightenment. He had carefully determined that the Galactic Council invasion constituted what the manual classified as a major extraordinary administrative event, which required immediate notification of 43 different government agencies, each of which would need to conduct their own comprehensive review processes before any final administrative decisions could be made. "Let's see now," he muttered, while consulting his extensive procedural guidelines and cross-referencing 17 different administrative manuals. Department of Extraterrestrial Affairs, Department of Defense and Military Coordination, Department of Environmental Protection and Impact Assessment, Department of Cultural Preservation and Heritage Protection, Department of Economic Impact and Financial Assessment, Department of Tourism and Visitor Services. Oh yes, absolutely must involve the Department of Tourism and Visitor Services. Large groups of visitors, even potentially hostile ones, definitely fall under their administrative jurisdiction, according to Section 47.8b of the Comprehensive Guidelines for Unusual Visitor Situations. The Galactic Council fleet, meanwhile, was making the profound discovery that bureaucracy was infinitely more effective at preventing invasions than any conceivable conventional weapon. When your entire military force becomes completely paralyzed by the administrative requirement to file proper documentation for every single action, conquest becomes not merely difficult, but literally impossible. "Sir," reported Dr. Gigglesworth, who had been desperately attempting to analyze Earth's administrative systems, while simultaneously filling out 17 different forms required to authorize his research activities. "I've made a discovery that fundamentally challenges our understanding of civilization itself. Their bureaucracy isn't merely a system of government administration, it's a complete way of existence. They've successfully integrated comprehensive paperwork requirements into every single aspect of their civilization. They need official forms to get married, forms to purchase food, forms to travel from one geographical location to another, forms to own property, forms to work, forms to breathe in certain designated areas. They've created a planetary civilization where absolutely nothing can happen without proper documentation, appropriate approvals, and comprehensive administrative processing. That's absolutely monstrous," gasped Hufflepuff, his eye stalks writhing in patterns that suggested existential horror. "No, sir, it's far worse than monstrous," Dr. Gigglesworth continued, his voice filled with a mixture of terror and grudging professional admiration. "It's magnificently, brilliantly, perfectly efficient. They've completely eliminated the possibility of rash decisions, impulsive actions, unauthorized activities, or administrative irregularities by requiring that absolutely everything be properly documented, appropriately approved and processed through correct channels according to established procedures. No one can successfully invade their planet because invasion requires comprehensive paperwork, and by the time you've completed all the necessary administrative requirements, you've either given up in despair, forgotten why you wanted to invade in the first place, or become so thoroughly integrated into their administrative system that you're no longer capable of hostile action." The profound truth of this observation was becoming increasingly clear to everyone aboard the Galactic Council fleet. Officers who had spent their entire careers dreaming of glorious military conquest were now drowning in an endless ocean of forms, applications, permits, licenses, certificates, authorizations, approvals, assessments, evaluations, and administrative requirements that seemed to reproduce themselves whenever anyone looked at them directly. "Sir," whimpered Tactical Operations Officer Snufflebottom, his voice suggesting someone whose sanity was hanging by an increasingly thin administrative thread. "I've been attempting to complete Form 247B for the past 8 hours, but every time I think I'm finally finished, I discover that I need to fill out additional forms to verify that I filled out the original form correctly, and then I need other forms to authorize the verification forms, and then I need even more forms to confirm that the authorization forms for the verification forms are properly completed. And sir," added Weapons Coordination Specialist Gigglebottom, with a voice that suggested someone contemplating the infinite futility of existence, "the targeting computers are now requiring me to submit a comprehensive environmental impact statement, a cultural sensitivity assessment, a property damage evaluation, a noise pollution analysis, and a community relations impact study before I can even consider pointing our weapons in the general direction of anything whatsoever. Apparently, military death rays have significant implications for local carbon emissions, community harmony, and property values." Supreme Commander Hufflepuff sat in his command chair, staring at the endless, ever-growing mountain of paperwork that had completely covered his command console and was now spreading across the floor, up the walls, and beginning to achieve what appeared to be independent existence. His 17 eye stalks had begun moving in perfectly synchronized patterns of absolute bureaucratic defeat. "How?" he whispered, his voice carrying the cosmic weight of complete existential bewilderment. "How did we spend an entire 1,000 years meticulously planning to conquer a planet, only to be utterly defeated by paperwork?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Junior Assistant Deputy Undersecretary Blippington, who had been quietly attempting to fill out administrative forms at his workstation while simultaneously trying to maintain his sanity, suddenly looked up with an expression of dawning cosmic comprehension. "Sir," he said slowly, his voice carrying the tone of someone who has just achieved a moment of perfect universal clarity, "I believe I understand exactly what has happened to us. We spent an entire millennium planning to invade a planet we thought was made of empty space. We designed our complete military strategy around conquering absolute nothingness. But this planet isn't made of empty space. It's made entirely of forms, administrative forms, bureaucratic procedures, official documentation. The entire planet is essentially one enormous, living, breathing administrative organism that exists solely to process paperwork and generate more paperwork." "What do you mean the entire planet is made of forms?" "Consider it logically, sir. Every single aspect of their civilization requires comprehensive documentation. Every action, every decision, every thought, every breath is processed through official administrative channels according to established procedures. They haven't simply created a bureaucracy to govern their society. They've created a planet-sized administrative organism that feeds on paperwork, grows stronger with every form that gets filed, and reproduces by generating additional forms that require even more forms to process them." The horrifying, magnificent truth of this observation settled over the Galactic Council fleet like a cosmic blanket of bureaucratic despair. They had traveled across the galaxy to conquer a world, only to discover that the world had already been completely conquered by the most relentless, unstoppable force in the universe. Organized bureaucracy operating at maximum administrative efficiency. "Sir," reported communications specialist Tiddlywinks, her voice suggesting someone who had achieved perfect bureaucratic enlightenment through complete administrative breakdown, "we're receiving another official communication from the planet's surface." Mortimer's face appeared on the main viewer once again, looking as politely, efficiently, magnificently bureaucratic as ever. "Good evening," he said, with cheerful administrative precision, while consulting an even larger clipboard that appeared to contain several thousand additional pages of official documentation. "I hope you're making satisfactory progress on your paperwork requirements. I wanted to provide you with an official status update on your invasion application. I'm pleased to report that your documentation has been successfully received, properly logged, and assigned an official processing number, 847X9982B Delta Gamma Epsilon 7759. Your application is currently positioned in the administrative queue for preliminary review, which should commence in approximately 27 months, assuming all your supporting documentation is correctly completed, properly formatted, and submitted by the established deadlines according to current procedural requirements." 27 months? Hufflepuff screeched, his voice achieving frequencies that briefly interfered with solar radiation patterns and caused 3 nearby comets to spontaneously change direction. "Oh, that's merely for the preliminary administrative review," Mortimer explained with helpful bureaucratic efficiency while flipping through several hundred pages of scheduling documentation. "The comprehensive full review process typically requires between 7 and 15 years, depending on the complexity of the application. the availability of reviewing personnel, seasonal administrative workload fluctuations, and the current backlog in the Department of Extraterrestrial Military Activities Assessment. Of course, if any of your forms are incomplete, incorrectly filled out, improperly formatted, or submitted past the established deadlines, the entire process will need to restart from the very beginning, according to Section 234.7c of the Administrative Procedures for Reprocessing Incomplete Documentation. And, sir, Communications Specialist Tiddlywinks added, with a voice that suggested she had achieved a Zen-like state of bureaucratic acceptance, he's also transmitted an official invoice for administrative processing services. An invoice? Yes, sir. Apparently, invasion applications require comprehensive, non-refundable filing fees to cover administrative processing costs. Let me calculate this. 47,000 Earth monetary units per spacecraft for basic application processing, plus additional fees for expedited review services, environmental impact assessment charges, cultural sensitivity evaluation costs, and administrative overhead expenses, times 7,000 ships. That comes to, 329 million Earth monetary units, plus applicable taxes, sir, plus late payment penalties if payment isn't received within 30 standard Earth days, plus interest charges calculated daily, plus administrative fee assessment charges for calculating the administrative fees. Tiddlywinks continued, with the methodical precision of someone reading cosmic doom from an accounting ledger. Furthermore, Mortimer continued from the viewing screen while consulting additional official documentation. I should inform you that your fleet's current orbital position violates approximately 47 different sections of Earth's comprehensive space traffic regulations. You'll need to immediately file Form 891X for Temporary Emergency Orbital Parking Permit Extension, Form 445C for Large Fleet Navigation Coordination License, Form 672B for Confirmation of Compliance with Atmospheric Non-Interference Protocols, and Form 1-123D for Alien Military Vessel Registration and Safety Inspection Certification. The Galactic Council fleet hung motionlessly in space, utterly paralyzed by the sheer bureaucratic magnificence of Earth's administrative systems operating at full cosmic efficiency. Warriors who had spent centuries dreaming of glorious interstellar conquest were now contemplating the very real possibility that they would spend the remainder of their natural lives filling out forms, waiting in administrative queues, and trying to understand the subtle distinctions between different categories of official documentation. This situation has transcended all known definitions of impossibility, moaned Commander Sillybottom, her voice carrying harmonics that suggested complete existential surrender. We cannot successfully invade a planet that requires us to file comprehensive applications for the privilege of invading it. It's like attempting to conquer an enormous filing cabinet that files applications for the privilege of being conquered by filing cabinets. It's infinitely worse than that, Doctor. Gigglesworth whispered, his voice filled with cosmic awe and terror. It's like attempting to conquer a filing cabinet that automatically generates additional filing cabinets, each of which requires separate applications to be conquered, and those applications can only be processed by other filing cabinets that require their own conquest applications. Supreme Commander Hufflepuff sat in his command chair, completely surrounded by an ever-growing mountain of paperwork that had now achieved what appeared to be independent intelligence and was beginning to organize itself into neat, terrifying piles. His 17 eye stalks had stopped moving entirely and were simply staring at the endless ocean of forms, applications, permits, licenses, certificates, authorizations, and administrative requirements that covered every available surface throughout the ship. After what felt like several geological epochs, but was probably only 17 minutes, Hufflepuff spoke with a voice that carried the cosmic weight of absolute bureaucratic defeat. "You know what, everyone? he said with the quiet resignation of someone who has just realized that some battles cannot be won through any conceivable conventional means. I believe we should go home." "Sir?" Junior Assistant Deputy Undersecretary Blippington asked tentatively, looking up from a form he had been unsuccessfully attempting to complete for the past 4 hours. "We should go home. We should fill out the proper departure forms, submit our withdrawal applications according to established procedures, complete our administrative exit processing, and find a nice planet made of actual empty space to invade. Preferably one that doesn't require comprehensive paperwork for military conquest." "But sir," protested Chief Strategic Planning Officer Wobblebottom, her voice carrying notes of desperate military pride, "what about our 1,000 years of meticulous planning? What about our reputation as cosmic conquerors? What about our destiny as the supreme military force in the galaxy? What about our sacred obligation to achieve glorious conquest?" Hufflepuff looked thoughtfully at the endless stream of forms still flowing across his command screens, creating patterns that seemed to possess their own malevolent bureaucratic intelligence. "Wobblebottom," he said slowly, his voice filled with newfound cosmic wisdom, "our destiny is apparently to become the galaxy's most comprehensively trained administrative specialists. And you know what? I'm discovering that I'm strangely, surprisingly, completely okay with that revelation. Sir," added Dr. Gigglesworth with growing enthusiasm, "consider the possibilities. We could establish the galaxy's first interstellar bureaucratic consulting service. We could help other civilizations develop proper administrative procedures. We could teach the art of comprehensive paperwork management to species across the cosmos. Furthermore," contributed communications specialist Tiddlywinks, "we've accidentally received the most comprehensive education in advanced administrative procedures that any military force has ever experienced. We're probably now qualified to establish and operate bureaucratic systems for entire galactic sectors." The concept began spreading throughout the fleet like a virus of positive bureaucratic thinking. Warriors who had trained for conquest began recognizing the elegant beauty of proper administrative procedures. Strategic planners started appreciating the magnificent complexity of comprehensive filing systems. Even the ship's artificial intelligences began expressing interest in careers in government document processing. "Attention all vessels," Hufflepuff announced throughout the fleet, his voice now carrying notes of bureaucratic enlightenment rather than military authority. "We are initiating administrative procedure Omega-7, complete peaceful withdrawal with full documentation compliance. All ships will begin the official departure process according to Earth's established administrative requirements." What followed was probably the most comprehensively documented military withdrawal in galactic history. The Galactic Council fleet began the long, slow, methodical process of requesting permission to leave Earth's orbital space, which required filling out Form 8921X for departure authorization and administrative clearance, Form 445C for exit visa application and processing, Form 672B for confirmation of completion of previous administrative requirements, Form 1234F for final administrative status review, and approximately 47 additional forms covering everything from waste disposal, certification to atmospheric non-contamination verification. Down on Earth, Mortimer Fizzlebottom was experiencing what was undoubtedly the most professionally satisfying day of his entire career in government service. He filed his final report of the day with the methodical satisfaction of someone who had successfully processed the most complex administrative challenge in the history of his department. Subject: successful processing of extraterrestrial military action application. Date: current date, to all relevant administrative departments. From Mortimer Fizzlebottom, Senior Administrative Processing Specialist, Alien Invasion Application, Processing, Case Number. 847X9982 B Delta Gamma Epsilon 7759. Summary: alien invasion successfully processed through proper administrative channels according to established procedures. No unauthorized conquest activities detected or permitted. All extraterrestrial visitors properly documented, assigned appropriate processing numbers, and guided through correct administrative procedures. Military action application currently in standard review process. Invasion applicants have voluntarily initiated withdrawal procedures and are completing departure documentation according to established protocols. Recommendations: continued monitoring of situation recommended. Regular updates to invasion application procedures manual suggested. Consider development of specialized training programs for handling large-scale extraterrestrial military administrative processing. Recommend commendation for successful implementation of Emergency Bureaucratic Protocol 17. Administrative action. Taken: Universal Administrative Efficiency and Coordination System successfully activated and operated according to specifications. No administrative irregularities detected. All procedures followed correctly. Status: case successfully processed. Administrative objectives achieved. Normal operations resumed. Respectfully submitted, Mortimer Fizzlebottom, Senior Administrative Processing Specialist, Department of Administrative Redundancy and Redundant Administration. He glanced once more at the brilliant red button on his desk, smiled with quiet professional satisfaction, carefully organized his desk according to regulation procedures, and went home to complete his daily activity report, his weekly productivity summary, his monthly evaluation of quarterly objectives, and his annual assessment of long-term administrative goals. As the Galactic Council fleet slowly departed Earth's solar system, carefully following all established departure procedures and maintaining proper documentation for their withdrawal process, they transmitted a final official communication to Earth's government. To the administrative authorities of Earth, we, the Galactic Council of supremely important beings who take themselves very seriously, wish to express our profound admiration for your magnificent bureaucratic achievements. Your administrative systems represent the absolute pinnacle of organized efficiency, and we are deeply honored to have experienced them firsthand. We are withdrawing our invasion application and departing your space according to proper procedures. Please consider this our formal recommendation to all galactic civilizations. Earth has achieved perfect administrative enlightenment and should be respected as the galaxy's supreme example of bureaucratic excellence. We will be establishing the Galactic Council Institute for Advanced Administrative Studies, and we would be honored if Earth would consider providing consultation services for our educational programs. With deepest administrative respect, Supreme Commander Hufflepuff and the Galactic Council Fleet PS, we have enclosed proper departure documentation, completed in septuplicate as required, along with appropriate processing fees and a formal thank you note for the excellent customer service. The Universal Administrative Efficiency and Coordination System quietly returned to its normal operational state, having successfully demonstrated that the most powerful defense against any form of hostile action isn't superior technology, overwhelming firepower, or strategic military genius. The most effective defense is a properly organized bureaucracy with an unlimited supply of forms, an absolute commitment to following correct procedures, and the magnificent ability to transform any aggressive action into a comprehensive administrative process that takes longer to complete than most civilizations have patience to endure. 6 months later, Earth received its first application from an alien civilization requesting assistance in organizing their administrative procedures. Within 2 years, Earth had become the galaxy's premier consultant for bureaucratic organization and administrative efficiency. Within a decade, the Earth Administrative Procedures Manual had been translated into 847 different galactic languages and was considered essential reading for any civilization seeking to achieve true organizational enlightenment. The Galactic Council, meanwhile, successfully established their Institute for Advanced Administrative Studies and discovered that there was enormous demand throughout the galaxy for proper bureaucratic training. They found their new careers infinitely more satisfying than military conquest, primarily because administrative achievement provided the deep satisfaction that comes from knowing that everything has been done correctly, according to proper procedures, with appropriate documentation. Mortimer Fizzlebottom received a promotion to Director of Extraterrestrial Administrative Relations and was eventually honored with the galaxy's first Lifetime Achievement Award for bureaucratic excellence. The universe learned something profoundly important that day. The most devastating weapon against 1,000 years of military planning isn't advanced technology, superior strategy, or overwhelming force. It's one dedicated civil servant with a properly organized filing system, a comprehensive understanding of administrative procedures, and access to a button that activates the pure essence of bureaucratic efficiency when the situation absolutely requires it.